Welcome, everyone. This is our Burgess Power Hour, and we are excited tonight because tonight's topic is going to be about mastery. And part of mastery is making mistakes without invalidating yourself. So this is near and dear to my heart because so many of us definitely, I know, make mistakes and we beat ourselves up about it. So that is part of being a master of your own domain. So I welcome all of you who are calling in from all around the world. And just a little housekeeping, I am recording this. You will get the replay. If you registered online, you'll be getting a special email from me tomorrow, so be looking for that. And you'll get a link to be able to hear it all again. I also put it on our Facebook groups as well so that you can download that again so that you can hear it in its entirety if you're not able to stay on the call or if you're not on the call. If you are, just remember that if you have any background noise, we want to have you mute yourself. You can hit *6 or just hit mute. With most phones today, you can do that. Now, I do want to have this experiential, and I want to be able to hear from you. So even though you might be muted, when it's time to talk, please unmute yourself so we can have a conversation. And those of you who are not driving, please try to get a pen or pencil or something out and something to write with because, as usual with these power hours, I really want to dig in as deep as we can in an hour about each of these topics. And so we're going to do a little writing exercise for you to get some clarity around your own beliefs around being a master and making mistakes. So without further ado, I know that we have a lot of people from around the country and I think also around the world, and I just welcome all of you for listening, and let's just jump right in. So there are many, many, many components to being a master, and what I would like to do is to kind of go over all of the components that I have about being a master, and then we're going to focus in on just one of them, which is basically making
Burge,
mistakes.
I don't know what happened, but
yes?
I can't hear you anymore.
Oh, can you hear me?
I don't know if anybody else is experiencing the same problem.
Can anybody hear me?
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay. I don't know who that is that can't hear me, but I'm glad somebody can out there. That's good. Because this would be so not a fun call if you can't hear what I'm saying, so or what we're saying together. Whoever said they couldn't hear me, gosh, I guess call back in maybe. Okay. So here's the deal. With mastery, okay, one of the ways of being your own master is correcting yourself from mistakes. Instead of invalidating yourself, you correct. So many of us make mistakes, and we beat ourselves up about it, or we're afraid to make a mistake, therefore we just freeze and don't do anything. So that is one of the components of being a master of your own destiny. And so that is what we're going to really dive deep into tonight. But I just wanted to give you an overview of some other components that mastery is made up of. So number one is correct without invalidating yourself. Correct any mistakes that you have without invalidating yourself. The second one is commit to excellence. Just commit to excellence. And I'll go into that just a little bit in a minute. Another third one is removing any mediocrity in your life. Removing any mediocrity. And the fourth one is removing any resentment toward masters. Removing resentment toward masters. And the fifth one, 5, is having compassion for yourself. Having compassion for yourself. And number 6 is willing to be open and receptive. Willing to be open and receptive. And the last one, number 7, is willing to go beyond your ordinary limits. Willing to go beyond your ordinary limits. So those are components of mastery. And like I said, we're going to dive deep into one of them tonight, which is about making mistakes and how to do that without invalidating yourself. So part of mastery itself is be able to constantly produce results beyond and out of the ordinary. So mastery is a product of consistently going beyond our limits and committing to excellence. So if you're willing to commit yourself to excellence, to surround yourself with things that represent excellence, then your life will change because your vibration changes and everything around you will change. That's my belief. So it's remarkable how much mediocrity we can live with. Just look at your life. Look at who you hang out with. Look at your workspace. Look at your car, your home, your family.
Julie.
Surrounding ourselves with daily reminders that the average is acceptable. And so many people suffer from terminal normality. They want to be normal. And so just take a moment to assess all the things around you that promote you being average. The people in your life or the things that you've set up in your life. These are the things that keep you powerless to go beyond a limit that you arbitrarily set for yourself. So the first step to mastery is the removal of everything in your environment that represents mediocrity, removing those things that are limiting to you. So one way is to surround yourself with friends who ask more of you than you do. So think about that. If you surround yourself with people that ask more of you than you do, you will achieve more or want to be able to go beyond what arbitrary limits you put on yourself. I mean, didn't some of your best teachers or coaches or parents or people that just want to encourage you to do even greater things, to lift you up, to empower you, to tell you how powerful you really are, and to not let you slump back down into being mediocre? So that's a really powerful position to be in when you're on your way to mastery. So, again, I'm kind of going through all the components of mastery, and then we're going to dive deep into the mistake part of all of this in just a second. One of the steps on the path to mastery is the removal of resentment toward masters. Think about it. A lot of times, people get around people that are really masters in their field or that they look up to, and even though they look up to people, sometimes if you're not feeling good about yourself, you resent them. You put them on a pedestal and then you want to knock them down because you're not there. And that just comes from our past conditioning and our feelings of self-worth and self-esteem. So what I'm suggesting is you just develop compassion for yourself so that you can be in the presence of masters and grow from that experience rather than comparing yourself and resenting people who have mastery. Just remain open and receptive. Let the experience be like the planting of a seed. So that planting of a seed within you, that with the nourishment that masters can share with you, will grow into your own individual mastery. But you have to let go of the resentment. We say to ourselves, I wish we could be there. I'm not there yet. So be compassionate with yourself. You're learning. Because a master, rather than condemning himself or herself for their ordinariness, they will embrace it. You embrace who you are and use it as a foundation for building that extraordinary person within you. So I know a lot of people, instead of saying it that way, instead of saying, I can't ever achieve that, or they think, there's something wrong with me, or why can't I do things right, or I just can't try hard enough, Why can't I be like those people? We use those as excuses for our inactivity. So instead of using that as an excuse for not going for it and being inactive for your dreams and your goals in your life, use it as a vehicle for correcting things. Correct, which is essential in the process of attaining mastery. You must be able to correct yourself without invalidating or condemning yourself, to accept the results and improve. So correct, don't protect. I'll say that again. Correct yourself, don't protect yourself. Correction is essential to your power and living in mastery. So let's look at that. Let's look at what the heck goes on with us. Why in the heck do we do that when we make a mistake? So many of us, I talk about this in our Essence of Being classes and a lot of the programs that we do about, we have a desire, and that's like our gas in a car that we're putting our gas on. We want something really bad. We want it. And then our belief is that we can't have it, so we put our brake on. Or we're afraid. We're afraid that we can't get it, or we're afraid that we're going to make a mistake. So we put our brake on. So what happens is, we're driving around with a gas and a brake on at the same time, and of course that doesn't get us anywhere. We just spin our wheels and we feel stuck. And so many people that I've worked with over the last 35 years, they just feel stuck and frozen. And they end up just settling and saying, well, it really wasn't meant to be. I'm not supposed to have it. I'm afraid I'm going to make another mistake, so I better just not try anymore. And we settle because of our fears that we're going to fail. Or it could be our fears that we're going to succeed, or both. So that is what happens so many times. We invalidate ourselves when we make a mistake. And what a lot of the things that I say in our classes is that, look, if you avoid failing something, you could be avoiding succeeding something. Because of being afraid to fail means you already have. In other words, if you're stuck and you're frozen, if you're afraid to fail, then you've already failed. Because failure is part of the process. Think about the athletes. They fail and they fail and they fail and they fail, and then they win. Think about people who try, and you could look at every single thing as a failure, but what failure does is it turns learners, because when you're failing, you're learning. You're learning. It's a learning experience. All mistakes can be learning experiences. And if you flip that shift, if you shift that thought that all my mistakes are learning experiences, then it makes it a little easier for you to make a mistake and learn from it, because those failures turn learners into winners. So if you are making mistakes in your life with relationships, or with choices that you've made in careers, or if you've made mistakes in, directions, just think about you recalculate. If you make a mistake and you're driving somewhere and your GPS is wrong or whatever, what do? You recalculate, you correct. Hopefully most of us don't, throw our phones down or beat ourselves up and saying, well, that was our fault that we went that way. We just correct. We correct it without any judgment. So it's sort of like, Edison. You know the story of Edison, right? He was his teachers told him that he was too stupid to learn anything. And he was fired from his first 2 jobs for being non-productive. So if you've been fired in your jobs for being non-productive, you're in good company, because Thomas Edison was there too. So as an inventor, we know the story for some of us. Edison made 1,000 different unsuccessful attempts at inventing the light bulb. So somebody asked him, how did you feel failing 1,000 times? And Edison said, I didn't fail 1,000 times. The light bulb was an invention with 1,000 steps. So he didn't give up. He didn't view each unsuccessful attempt as a failure, but rather as a learning experience. Now, I want you to think back. Why in the heck would we ever say to ourselves, we've made a mistake, or it's a problem, or there's something wrong with us? It comes from our past. Think about what did you hear when you were little about making a mistake? Was it okay? Was it okay with your teachers if you made a mistake? Probably not. Was it okay with your religion if you made a mistake? Probably not. Was it okay with your parents if you made a mistake? Probably not, some of the time. Was it okay with your friends if you made a mistake? Or culture, or society? So all of these things come from our past. That's what builds us up. That's what makes us who we are. And so I want everybody to think about the earliest time in your life. So when you were a little kid, you made mistakes, right? Do you know what the biggest mistake you made when you were little? I'll tell you, the very first ones that you probably don't remember, but think about it. When you learned to walk, okay, you stepped on your right foot, and then did you step on your wrong foot and fall down? No, you stepped on your left foot. So you stepped on your right foot, and then you made a mistake, and you stepped on your left foot, and you fell down and made a mistake. What did you do? You got back up. You tried it again. You stepped on your right foot, and you stepped on your left foot, and you made a mistake, and you fell down. And what did you do? You got back up, and you kept going. And the lesson here is that we all make mistakes, and we all have overcome some brilliant mistakes because we learned. And one of the first things we learned physically was how to walk for many of us, for hopefully most of us. And we didn't beat ourselves up and stop and say, well, I'm not going to do that anymore. No, I fell down. I'm not going to try anymore. There was this desire within us that kept us moving, and that's the key. If you stop because you're afraid to make a mistake, everything stops. You're not moving at all. As long as you are participating, that's one of my favorite things I talk about in the workshops, is that failure, the only failure is the failure to participate in your life. Because as long as you're moving, you're adding value. You're moving toward something. If you stand still with your foot out, afraid to step down because you might fall, you're not adding any value. You're just standing there. And you're not able to learn. Most people learn by making mistakes. And one of the things I talk about in the Essence of Being is the man on the moon. When we went to the moon for the first time, it's on course and off course. What percentage of the time was that spaceship on course toward the moon? It was on course 2% of the time, because what it was doing was going off course and on course and off course and on course. It was correcting. It was self-correcting toward the goal. And the key here is there was a goal. So they knew where they were going, and they kept correcting until they got there. But so many of us don't look at it that way. We don't look at it going off course and on course. We look at it as we made a mistake and we failed. And so making mistakes and failing is, again, part of the process. So what I want to do is I want you to get your piece of paper out and get your pen out if you can. And I want you to do something for me, which is stream of consciousness writing. And what that means is you just write down the first things that come up. Don't try to edit it. Don't try to figure it out. Just fill in the blank. and just write down the first things that you can think of. Okay? Any questions about that? All right. So the first thing is, I want you to fill in the blank. Failure is, and finish the sentence. Failure is, and if you're driving, just think about what failure is to you. And then finish up on the one you're on. And then the next one you want to write is success is, and then just write down whatever success is to you. What's it look like? And then finish up on the one you're on. And then the last one you want to write is, what will happen to me if I fail? What will happen to me if I fail? Just finish up on the one you're on. Okay, so hopefully you got some kind of an awareness about what your belief systems are around failures and successes and what will happen to you. So as I do every time with our power calls, I love to hear from you as far as what you wrote down, and when you share anything, or if you have questions, or if you share what you wrote, a lot of times people learn from you and have similar things that come up for them. So who would like to share something? You have to unmute yourself in order to do that.
Hi, Bird. The first thing that came up for me when you asked what failure is, can you hear me?
Yeah, uh-huh.
Oh, okay. Was giving up. And to me, failure sums up that feeling of hopelessness, of feeling defeated, of not following your heart, and of giving up on your dreams.
Okay.
And when you ask what will happen to me if I fail, there's that feeling of having wasted a life, having wasted the opportunity, it just seems like when you lose your direction and you can't seem to get on that road again, the biggest thing to me is that frustration of waste, of feeling lost, at a loss.
Feeling lost, okay. Perfect. Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, giving up, and that's for a lot of people. Failure is basically that hopelessness and giving up. It's like, why bother? And you look around at your life and you think, wow, what have I really added? What kind of value have I added? I feel so lost in my direction, and I feel like I've wasted my time being here. And that can definitely limit you as to, you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself when you think that if I don't do X, Y, Z, then I've wasted my life, or I've just lost direction. So there's a lot of pressure is what I hear from you in that. I hear that somewhere along your life, somebody put a lot of pressure on you about you've got to achieve or you've got to dream, and if you don't make those dreams, and you give up, then that obviously puts you into hopelessness and despair and depression and, just saying, why bother? It's not going to happen anyway. Has that been a feeling of yours before?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
I think maybe more than the pressure from there was tremendous pressure. There was tremendous pressure, but also the feeling of trying and realizing that after various efforts, something does not pan out.
Right.
And that self-fulfilling prophecy of which came first. Is it the beliefs that are stopping me, or is it something else that's blocking certain things?
Right.
Or, you reach a certain point of hopelessness once you've tried various avenues and various ways. And I commend the second try to create the light bulb.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, can you imagine how Edison felt 1,000 times? What if he stopped at 999?
Precisely.
What would happen?
Precisely.
Can you imagine
That's why I say
somebody?
Failure is getting out, but when do you got to just keep trying and trying and trying and trying.
Well, and that's the thing. A lot of people do. Like I said, they settle. They give up and say it was never meant to be. And I don't want to feel hopeless about it, so I'll just shift what I'm wanting to have. So I'll just settle with this or something that I think maybe, a little bit lesser than what I really wanted, so that I don't feel like I am a total waste,
Yeah.
So the thing about that is, again, it's about correcting without the judgment, without beating ourselves up. Because, think about it. 7 out of 10 millionaires go bankrupt at least once. Did you know that? Yeah.
No, but you did mention that at the Power of Abundance, at the Essence of Abundance.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they go bankrupt at least once, so we're all in good company there. And so here's the thing about giving up and feeling like you're lost, and you try and you try and you try. Again, think about also another one is Colonel Sanders with Kentucky Fried Chicken. I think he was like 1 million years old by the time he got to the place where they actually his chicken recipe actually started selling. It's like, how many times is enough? How many times is it where you just stop? And so for me, it's like, don't give up before the miracle. For me, about the failing part of this is, don't judge yourself that you are failing, because that means you are at least learning and participating and self-correcting. Because here's what happens, you get in the trap of, if you get in the trap of beating yourself up because you made a mistake, what's going to happen is that energetically, guilt demands punishment. So if you feel guilty about anything, about why you haven't gotten to where you want to be by now, or if you felt guilty because you made a mistake, that energy of guilt will demand punishment. And it can come to you in two different forms. It can come from the outside, where you feel like you're being punished. A whole bunch of obstacles come in, and you just feel like nothing's working on the outside, and someone comes to you and punishes you for whatever reason. Or you punish yourself, and you self-sabotage. Either way, when you feel guilty about something, you are being punished. So if you find yourself self-sabotaging yourself, you might want to look at, am I feeling deep down inside, or maybe not so deep, feeling really guilty? I should be a certain way. I should have already accomplished this, or I should have not done that. So if you find yourself shoulding on yourself, it can get really messy. That's a joke. Shoulding on yourself. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So shoulding on yourself can get really messy anyway, energetically, because it sets you up for more guilt. Mm-hmm. And when people feel guilty, it's an energy that just does not serve anybody. Because what happens is, especially that's how we invalidate ourselves when we fail. Because, like, if something doesn't happen, we didn't stick to the plan, or we let ourselves down. Mm-hmm. So we just kind of go within and feel bad about it, and nothing really shifts. We just feel bad. But if we look at it as, you know what, I'm learning from this. It's a learning experience. Think about it when you're little. If you had, had a little accident, made a mistake, and you pee-peed in your pants, and you say, I had a learning experience. How cool would that be if that little kid realizes that they were just learning, that there was no judgment there was no blame, no shaming, none of that. And that is what we, as adults, for many of us, have to overcome, is that belief from our past, okay, that there's something wrong, that we made a mistake, and we start blaming and shaming ourselves and feeling guilty, thinking that something's wrong, or we're not good enough, all of those things. And the other thing that can happen, if we don't, a lot of times we let other people down, we think we made a mistake. So we can invalidate ourselves that way too, because it can affect other people. So if your action or your non-action causes some hardship or discomfort to someone, it could trigger you. It could trigger you to feel shame. And, of course, those of you who have done any of my programs, shaming and blaming and making excuses and feeling guilty and all of those things do not serve you, and you're giving your power away because you're saying there's nothing I can do about it. It's all my fault. So you want to rise above that, and the only way to make a change is to take responsibility in your life. And what I mean by that is taking responsibility for your thoughts, your beliefs, and your actions. And that's all. You don't have to take responsibility and beat yourself up. You just take responsibility and say, you know what? Okay, I made a mistake, and I'm choosing something different now because I take responsibility for that. You're just correcting, just like a GPS. You're recalculating. And one of my mentors that I teach about, Buckminster Fuller, who is some of the philosophies that we teach in our Essence of Being and all of our other programs that we do, We call him Bucky. He's the one who coined the phrase win-win. He was an engineer, an architect, a philanthropist, brilliant man who saw the world in a different way. And one of the things that he said was that the biggest mistake we can make is not making enough mistakes. And then he went one step further and said, be willing to make public mistakes. Dun, dun, dun. Be willing to make public mistakes. Because many of us are afraid to be seen. Because we don't want to be seen making a mistake. And again, that comes from our past. I mean, what happened to you when you made a mistake when you were little? For some of us, it was pretty scary. For some of us, it was physical. Some of it was emotional. Some of it was mental. So making mistakes is part of the process. But what is not part of the process is judging yourself for doing it. We all have our little critical parent, is what I call it, the little critical parent on our shoulder, or that critical teacher. Uh-oh, you should have done it differently. You made a mistake. You better not do it again. And it's our little bubble talk. Remember, bubble talk is that unconscious thought that keeps us from getting what we want. It's the little bubble above our head, like cartoon characters think, with the little bubbles above their head. That's our unconscious, our bubble talk. And our little bubble talk can be very critical when we make mistakes. So this is what I really want to encourage all of us to do. Whenever we make a mistake, from now on, we think it was something that, we could have done differently, is to say thank you. Thank you. I am learning. I'm having a learning experience. That is awesome. I'm learning something from this. And I'm going to recalculate. I'm going to correct and go a different way. I'm going to get back on course. Okay, I went off course for a minute. But now I know how to get back on course. And one of the ways to get back on course quickly and smoothly and easily is to just say to yourself, I'm perfect just the way I am, and I can be so much more. And I choose to learn from this experience. And I'm going to let go of any judgment that I have around that. And I'm going to tell my critical parent that's sitting on my shoulder, thank you for sharing. I'm not going to give up. Because giving up doesn't feel so good. So what you can do instead of giving up is you keep your foot on the gas, like we talked about at the beginning of the call. Keep your foot on the gas, but take your brake off. And the brake is all the judgments and the beliefs that you can't do it and the being afraid that you're going to make a mistake. And remember, when you have fear, you have three choices. You can either freeze, flee, or fight. And this is a primitive response to being human. We can either fight, or we freeze, or we flee. So just notice in your life, what do you do the most? Especially when I'm afraid. Do I just fight and go for it? Do I run away from it, or do I just freeze? But think about this, how powerful you really are, because you learned to walk. You learned to ride a bike. You learn to swim, let's say. There are so many things in your life that you overcame because you wanted it, because you had a passion for it, because you had a goal in your mind. So if you're feeling at times either hopeless or feeling like you're directionless, or you maybe feel a little lost, or maybe you feel like giving up sometimes because it's hard, you've got to have a why. Why do I want this? And that why has to be purposeful and feel passionate, and you'll do anything. You commit to the process. And so I have an affirmation or so for all of you out there. And remember, affirmations are little lies you tell yourself until they become true. Ha, ha, ha. But these are things that you can tell yourself to remind yourself really how masterful you really are. You know, do you ever go back and look at all the things that have happened in your life and say, wow, I'm not doing so bad compared to where I've been? Or you say to yourself, if I hadn't have gone through what I went through, then I wouldn't be where I am now, or I wouldn't have learned. And I learned valuable lessons. So as you're going through those lessons in present moment and present time, that's when you look at, I'm doing this because I want it, I choose it, and I'm not going to judge myself. I'm just going for it. Okay, I make mistakes. I'm learning. So here is a really powerful affirmation for you to write for yourself. I completely forgive myself and accept myself as a loving, generous, and creative being. So I'll say it again. I completely forgive myself and accept myself as a loving, generous, and creative being. I release all need to hold on to any and all ideas of judgment. I release all need to hold on to any and all ideas of judgment that I created in the past. I release all need to hold any and all ideas of judgment that I created in the past. I withdraw my energy. I withdraw my energy from the past and release all barriers. I withdraw my energy from the past and release all barriers. Against the love and abundance that is my birthright. Against the love and abundance that is my birthright. So I'll say all that again. This is a really cool thing. You can put on an index card, put it on your mirror, look at it every morning. And if you make mistakes, come back to this every time. I completely forgive myself and accept myself as a loving, generous, and creative being. I release all need to hold on to any and all ideas of judgment that I created in the past. I withdraw my energy from the past and release all barriers against the love and abundance that is my birthright. That is my birthright. So does anybody else want to share anything that they thought of, or any aha or awareness or question?
Yeah, this is Candace. Can you hear me?
Candace? Sure,
Good. Well, two things. One is I am in LA now with my little grandson who just turned 5, and he just started karate about 3 weeks ago. And I've gone the past couple of days. He goes 3 times a week. And yesterday, while the rest of the class was doing different kinds of exercises, she would take one child at a time, and there may be 8 or 9 in the class, and take one and then do the little routine with them and beside them and show them the way so they could keep repeating it each week or each class so they would get to know it. And so I could tell that he kind of missed on one because he went the wrong direction, and she turned him around, and then he did the rest, and he did it. I could tell he was a little bit insecure, wasn't sure. And then all of a sudden, when he went to do the next move, he turned and looked at his mom and me and smiled, and then his whole face was crumpled, and he ran off the floor to his mom and cried and cried. And she goes, "It's okay. You can't go off the floor. Go back. It's okay." And I think in his head, I mean, what came up for me, because I am pretty intuitive, and I've been there a whole lot, because I was raised to be very perfectionistic, like my mom. So these poor kids below me, unfortunately, got my role modeling. And he cried and cried, and so my daughter took him back and said, no, you've got to stay in the class. So he goes back, and the teacher said, go sit on the side, it's okay, and you can participate in a minute. So he sat over on the side and rubbed his eyes and cried, hunched over and cried and cried. And then in a few minutes, she did another person, and then she started a new lineup of people and say, okay, Garrett, do you want to go first or do you want to go last? He wouldn't look up. He kept crying and rubbing his eyes and bent over, would not even look up. And she said, okay, you'll go last. But she had no judgment. And then that group went and did their thing, and then she had another little thing for them to do and said, okay, Garrett, it's your turn now. You can go next if you want. And he didn't get up. He still was looking down, rubbing his eyes. He was so embarrassed. I just knew he was there because he thought he wasn't doing it right. And then finally she had another event. She said, okay, now you can come there. Garrett, come. You can get in and go next. And he did. And he did it all perfectly. He was jumping on these big, cushions and then jumping. And he's little. And for him to do this jump with 2 feet and do it right in that trip was already great. So he felt really good, and then he got back into the groove. At the end, we talked to the teacher, and she said, what happened? He was just about at the end, and he was doing great. I said, I think he was just so afraid that he felt he made a mistake, and he just totally lost his concentration and just went, I'm not doing it right, I can't do this, and totally froze up and was a basket case. And I said, I really have to commend you, though, because you had no judgment at all. When you had him sit down, you had no judgment. When you offered for him to come back 2 or 3 times, it was, Garrett, do you want to go now? Okay. Didn't make another comment, didn't try to lure him. It was so cool to watch how well she worked with him, because parents need to know this. And I know, we bend over backwards trying to make them feel better and then talk to them until they were blue in the face and all this stuff. And she just let him be who he was and didn't judge him at all. And then when he was ready to come back, that was fine, no comments. At the end of the class, when they were all standing up there before the very end, she said, what do we do when we have a hard time in class? Some of us had a hard time today. Isaac had some problem in one area, and Garrett had a problem in another area, and sometimes we all have a problem. And what do? Do we give up, or do we judge the other person? And then these are 5, 6, and 7-year-olds. But it was really cool because she directed it in general with no judgment. I was so impressed. It was so fabulous. And so to have this class now was just great, because it's something that I can now talk to him a little bit more about, even on a 5-year-old level, about how we make mistakes.
It's interesting that even at 5, so my question to you would be, does he have any siblings?
No, he doesn't, but my daughter was engaged to a guy that had 2 kids, 2 girls right around his age. He was 4 when they broke up a couple weeks ago. He just turned 5, and the girls were 4 and 6. the good news is that those two girls were fabulous with him. There was never 2 against 1. There was always love between the 3 kids. It was phenomenal. It blew me away. But I think that her fiancé, having been to Afghanistan 3 times and had a tough childhood with a lot of problems in it, and really has a different attitude about how boys should grow up than girls, especially having been, in the service and even loved going to Afghanistan, which I couldn't believe. And there's, there's stuff going on there. So I think he felt that he had to compete and be better and stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say it feels to me like, and this is true for most of us, that whether it's in the home or at a school or when we get socialized, whether it's, from siblings or from adult figures, we start comparing because what happens is, of course, as adults, we project all kinds of things onto our children. We just don't know we're doing it. We project our own insecurities and our own beliefs, and it comes out onto the kids, or the kids are the ones who, and us as children, we absorb all of that, and we think that is the truth about us. And so there could be some comparisons going on. There could be some, I have to prove myself. And that's what I have found so many times with so many of us, is that we're still, even as adults, feeling like we have to prove ourselves, that we have to prove ourselves to our parents or our teachers or our religion or something so that we can feel good about who we are and what we're doing. And so the comparisons also can come, like I said, from the siblings, or even competing for attention from, even if you're an only child, competing with attention from the parent. Because if you've got, if you're a single mom or a single dad, a lot of times you don't have time for a lot to go on with your child if you have to work and do 25 things at once. Or if you have a relationship and you have children, you're still having to take time for your relationship. And so a lot of times children will do that. They will compete for your attention and start beating themselves up if they don't get it. It's like, well, there must be something wrong with me because mommy or daddy or whomever is not paying attention to me. And
it's so true. Yeah. And what else happened was the day before in that class, we stayed until the next class where the other older of the 2 girls participates in that class, and she's been there a year, and she's very good. And the competition between her and her little sister is very interesting because the older girl is very loving and giving and very feels like she has to be perfect, because the little one is very dramatic and calls herself the princess and calls herself Cinderella and has no qualms dancing in front of the world, and she's hysterical. But the older one gives in and always gives her the space to be in front. And she made a mistake in class the day before and completely fell apart. I mean, she was a total mess. And my daughter said, this is what happens. She will not allow herself to make the tiniest mistake because she has to be perfect and do everything right, because the little one's getting all the attention, and
I'm sure that
she
triggered
just
you, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's so interesting because every kid is triggered. I mean, everybody's getting triggered all over the place.
Well, my point is when you get triggered like that, because you said initially, I had to be perfect too. That I was told I have to be perfect, and so many of us were told that, or we felt like we had to be in order to be loved. And so anytime that happens with anybody around us, it triggers our own thoughts and our own beliefs about ourselves that we have to be perfect. And so in order for us to be perfect, we can't make mistakes. And because we can't make mistakes, we're stuck sometimes because we're afraid to really go for it, because we just are afraid that we are not going to be loved. And it all boils back down to that simple, basic instinct, need, and desire that we all have, is that we all want to be loved, and we all want to be loved and wanted and shown that we make a difference in the world. And so all the times and all the places that I've been to all around the world, everybody wants the same thing. And that's it. And so just remember, no matter what you wrote down, thank you for sharing that, hon. no matter what you wrote down, no matter what you think successes and failures are, or what's going to happen to you if you make a mistake, just realize that, again, if you say, look, I'm perfect just the way I am, and I can be so much more, it's not like saying I'm perfect and I'm done. It's not like you're saying I'm perfect and I can't make a mistake. It's acknowledging that you are perfect for who you are right now, that you don't have to do anything else, you don't have to be anything else in order to receive love and know that you're innocent. Because what I said earlier about guilt, if you believe you're guilty because you haven't done something or you made a mistake or you're not where you should be, should, the opposite of guilt is innocence. So I would also add that to my list of shifting my beliefs about myself, that I'm innocent. I'm innocent doing what I do, being who I am. And so being innocent in your quest for prosperity or career or relationship or purpose, whatever it is that you're focusing on, be innocent with that. Have fun with it. Play. Be that innocent child again, learning how to walk. So the next time that you step into something that you really want to do and you're afraid, or you've made mistakes in the past and you want to give up, just think about when you were little, when you started to walk. Just say, I'm learning how to walk again. That's all. I'm stepping on my right foot and I'm stepping on my left foot. I'm not stepping on my wrong foot. So be kind to yourselves. And the thing I want to share with you is next month in May, the next power call is going to be May 18th, and it's going to be about essence of relationships with yourself, others, and beyond. So we're going to get down to the core of the essence of relationships about ourselves, about others, and beyond. So I invite all of you on the call tonight, and those of you who are playing it later, to please join me in May 18th. Remember, it's always the third Wednesday of every month. The third Wednesday of every month I do these power calls, and we do them differently every month. And I invite you to come to that. And just as an aside, I am going to be in Fort Lauderdale in April 29th, 30th, May 1st, everybody, for Essence of Being. It's our big flagship 3-day event program that basically you get into this experiential learning, and it's going to blow your socks off and shift things, and you'll be able to manifest exactly what you want through your careers and your beliefs and your relationships and your focus and your clarity. And that's happening on April 29th, 30th, and May 1st. And then in Atlanta, we're doing the same thing, Essence of Being, May 20th through the 22nd. So those are the two upcoming events that we're having. And if you are in the Florida area, or if you want to fly there, we are doing a little mini workshop as well, April 28th, which will be the Essence of Relationships, a little mini 2-hour workshop. So go to our Facebook groups, Essence of Being, EOB, /Healing Forest. You can go to our site, essenceofbeing.com, and check out all the events coming up. And like I said, if you did register online for this call tonight, you're going to be getting a special little email. So be looking for that, that we're going to be giving you some special things just because you registered and just for showing up tonight. Because in my world, 85% of having what you want is showing up. And so I know how precious your time is, and I really hope that all of you got something out of this tonight and you're ready to be masters of your own domain and to make mistakes. Go out there and make a lot of mistakes and just correct. And so you don't invalidate yourself and get frozen again. And remember, what you focus on expands. So focus on really creating what you want, not losing or not working or not achieving or any of that stuff, okay? So if everybody wants to say goodbye, and I want to stop the recording, but tell me where you're calling from, and we've got people from all around, so just shout out where you're calling from.
Ventura, California.
Awesome. Okay, then I will see you guys next time. And until then.
Great call. Thank you.
I love all of you. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, Bird.
Great, Bird. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.